Hello and welcome back to Foreign Correspondents. My name is Natasha Seo, Seoul Misorang, and it's an honor to serve as your new MC. And joining me is our panel of foreign correspondents, foreign journalists. Welcome to the program.
Thanks.
Thanks.
PyeongChang 2018 Winter Olympics is currently underway with the opening ceremony taking place last Friday on the 9th. So what are your overall expectations for it?
Well, I expect to see some nice sports, some spectacular competitions, famous players from all over the world.
Right. And Frederick?
Yes, that's exactly the same. I hope to see a lot of very interesting sport competition. And on the political side, I hope that these Olympic Games might help to improve the relationship between the two Koreas. I hope that in the long term, that this is not only limited to the Olympics, and we will continue this, that the dialogue might continue after this.
All right, we'll go through what to look out for at the 2018 PyeongChang Winter Olympics. The 2018 PyeongChang Winter Olympics kicked off its long journey with an impressive opening ceremony on February 9th. Athletes from 92 countries will compete in 15 sporting categories, with a total of 102 gold medals up for grabs over a 17-day period. The joint inter-Korean women's ice hockey team was the focal point of media attention across the globe in the run-up to the Olympics.
I think that the North Korean players played really well. Being added 12 days ago and not getting to practice together all that much, they played our systems pretty well. So I'm very impressed with them today.
저는 이번 이 경기 대회를 통하여 우리 북과 남이 하나로 이제 뭉쳐서 이제 모든 것을 해나간다면 무엇이든지 못해낼 일이 없다는 것을 오늘 절실히 다시 한번 느끼겠습니다.
Regardless of their performance, the joint women's ice hockey team has become a symbol of inter-Korean reconciliation. The North Korean figure skating pair of Yeom Dae-ok and Kim Joo-sik, who were the only athletes to qualify for the PyeongChang Olympics, also became the focal point of domestic media attention. Also coming under the spotlight are the 19 athletes who have become naturalized South Korean citizens to compete in the Games. Regardless of their skin color and preferred language, they all proudly wear the South Korean flag on their chests.
It's an honor, obviously, to represent Korea, to be a part of this. We're proud to be a part of it, and we're doing our best to make Korea proud. So,
many Koreans are also keenly anticipating news of their athletes winning gold in short track and speed skating, where South Korea has long been a powerhouse. Now, in this Olympics, nearly 3,000 athletes from 92 countries are taking part, and many athletes from your respective countries are also competing. So, having said that, are there any particular disciplines or athletes that you'll be keeping close tabs on?
Yes, for France, the star of the French delegation is Martin Fourcade. He's an 11-time world champion in biathlon. Biathlon, you know, when you ski and you shoot once in a while. In Sochi, he won 2 golds and 1 silver. So there's a lot of expectation that France doesn't bring so many medals during the Winter Olympics usually. So I will watch him very closely. And in ice skating, we have a very good couple this year named Papadakis and Cizeron. So I hope they will inspire and the people and do a good show on the ice.
Did they participate in Sochi last year, that pair?
Nope, no, they did not.
So this is their Olympic debut?
Yep, exactly.
Okay. What about you, Frank?
For me, I'm going to be looking at the ice hockey, at a couple of aspects of the ice hockey. First off, the NHL players, the professional hockey players from North America, are not going to be competing in the men's ice hockey competition. So that will kind of open it up to other countries to have a better chance to medal at the Olympic Games. Usually it's been like Russia, Sweden, the US and Canada really competing for medals in the ice hockey. And this will open it up to other teams. One of them being even South Korea, that has some Canadians that were naturalized as Korean citizens to take part in that. And I've covered them a little bit with the professional team that they play for here just outside of Seoul. So I'm interested to see how the Korean team makes out in men's ice hockey as well.
All right. And what about you?
Well, this Russian team is kind of weak on these Olympics because crème de la crème were just either banned from coming because of the doping or was just not allowed to come by the IOC.
Right.
So this year I think Russia has got chances in ice hockey and figure skating that we're going to have quite strong teams. So I'll be watching those disciplines.
Right. But what do you think about the general public, the global interest? Which sport do you think will enjoy the most amount of popularity?
I mean, in Korea, I think by far there will be short track, all the ice speed skating that raise a huge amount of interest.
Because that's where our strengths lie.
Exactly, and that's very impressive to watch. I mean, even before coming to Korea, I never watched these events, and actually I enjoy it now. It's actually extremely impressive.
Right.
And of course, figure skating.
That's always beautiful.
Yeah, exactly.
I think maybe the ice hockey, previously has been quite popular internationally. There's had been such a big interest because previously they didn't allow the professional players to play, and then for I think about a decade and a half or 2 decades, they allowed the professionals to players to play, and now there are issues with their competitive leagues, and as I mentioned, the NHL not letting them play. But I still think that there'll be a lot of interest and rivalry among countries, quite strong in the ice hockey event.
And I think all this, this ski jumping when they do half pipe, and that's really impressive. So I think that might work pretty well in terms of with the Olympics.
And there are some disciplines that are being added to the Olympics for the first time this time, so I think those will garner some interest.
True.
Now, speaking of particular athletes, I think the count was 19. A total of 19 players have reportedly become naturalized Korean citizens to participate in the PyeongChang Winter Olympics. And elsewhere in the world, there have been athletes, who I won't name, that have competed for countries that they have little to no emotional ties to. Do you think there is an ethical concern there?
Sure, I think there is sometimes an ethical concern there. Sometimes you have it where athletes qualify for the Olympics on a different country's team or through different citizenship because their other country doesn't have that path to the Olympic Games. Other times, as in South Korea, you have athletes competing in team sports and they bring something to that team. They're not sole representatives of the team or the star players of the team, but they contribute something to that team and also help develop the sport within South Korea, as per the ice hockey team, men's ice hockey team here, with a few players that are Canadians, but they don't make up the core of the team. It's mostly a Korean team. In those cases, I think having naturalized citizens on the Olympic teams of various countries is fine. When it's just being used as some sort of, to exploit the attention of the Olympic Games for that country or to, sneak into the Olympic Games, I don't think it's that appropriate.
Right.
I think the question is very acute for Korea because more than 10% of the Korean delegation is made of naturalized athletes, which doesn't mean they don't have, you mentioned emotional ties. I mean, some of these naturalized athletes are actually Korean adoptees or people from Korean origins. But I have to say, I'm not much of a nationalist, so I don't think for me that's a big issue if you compete for one country or for another. I don't see as a problem. Some people say that, you relate less to the team if you have if like the audience doesn't feel any connection with their players. But in most cases, I don't see any problem.
I think that's a really good point, and I think the delegation or the athletes coming from Russia under sort of the Olympic flag maybe opens up another pathway for those athletes that would otherwise qualify for the games that can't come because they're from a country that isn't sending a delegation or for some other reason, and maybe we could see athletes participate under the Olympic auspices in the future.
So even as a team sport, you mean?
As individual athletes.
And what about you?
Well, I do not really see much of a problem here, as it's always been so. The sportsmen would always change the citizenship. Some of them maybe even several times during their lifetime.
All right. And finally, how do you think the PyeongChang Games would be used in terms of further developing national interest in the winter sports overall?
Well, I think it's the best opportunity that South Korea is ever going to have to develop winter sports here and develop South Korea as a winter tourist destination. We have a lot of people coming here over the spring and summer, not so much in the winter seasons. And you can't ask for a better advertising venue than the Olympic Games for sure.
Right. And Frederick?
Yeah, I agree. Actually, you mentioned developing PyeongChang as a tourist destination. As a journalist, I interview several travel agencies who are actually very busy already preparing after the game. They're preparing some packages where they target especially Southeast Asian countries where there is no snow and people are mostly beginners, and they're preparing some packages where they will invite them to Seoul for a couple of days, and maybe 1 or 2 days they would go to PyeongChang to discover ski, and the rest of the days they would do K-pop concerts, discover Korean culture, Korean food. And I find that pretty interesting. This put PyeongChang on the map. In East Asia, the only countries where you could do, people think that you can know that they can do ski in Japan or in China, and now people will know that there is a very good option to do ski in Korea too.
All right. Now, once a city is chosen as the host of the Olympics, its name is mentioned thousands and thousands of times across the world in the media. And PyeongChang is no different. Its name is becoming more and more familiar to many around the globe. So let's see what's so special about the city and whether it can rise to become a popular tourist destination. The IOC session in Durban, South Africa on July 2011.
PyeongChang.
The announcement turned Korea's small alpine city of PyeongChang into a widely known city across the globe as a Winter Olympics host. There was one feature of PyeongChang that stood out in particular in the eyes of foreign media as North Korea continued to engage in provocations in the run-up to the Winter Olympics. This is the fact that PyeongChang lies in an area that is barely 100 kilometers removed from the border with North Korea, close enough that the athletes and tourists could perhaps feel threatened. Despite this, the fact that the Winter Olympics are being held in the border region of a divided nation is being interpreted as a symbol of peace for some observers.
고작 100km를 달리면 한반도 분단과 대결의 상징인 휴전선과 만나는 도시 평창이에요. 평화와 스포츠를 사랑하는 세계인들이 모입니다. 세계 각국의 정상들은 우위와 화합의 인사를 나눌 것입니다.
PyeongChang's natural environment alone makes it a suitable place to hold the Winter Olympics. The mountainous area of Daegwallyeong within PyeongChang provides an excellent environment for winter sports due to its slopes and plentiful snow. Mountains and the ocean lie in close proximity to PyeongChang, which is also home to many ranches and Buddhist temples, providing visitors with something to do all year round. Can PyeongChang become a globally renowned tourist destination? Our panelists on Foreign Correspondents share their opinions on this subject. Frank, I understand that you've recently visited PyeongChang. What were your general impressions about the city?
Well, one of the things that I liked about especially the Olympic Village is that they had several of the venues in the same area, and it was really only just a short drive to get from the main sort of ice facilities to the mountain. And I felt that that was a much better way to organize the Olympic Games than having the various venues further apart, as in the case of Vancouver. I'm not sure about some of the other Olympic Games, but I really felt that that would be most convenient for the athletes and the fans as well, to be able to get around and see probably a couple of events in the same day.
Right. And what about post-Olympics? Do you think it has the potential to become a tourist hotspot?
Well, post-Olympics it might be a little bit tougher because it's such a small place. And I went there actually you know, well before the Olympics, after they were announced, and I noticed, okay, this is a small, rural Korean village. It's not going to have the nightlife or cultural events or cultural venues or restaurants and things like that that foreigners, especially Westerners, are going to enjoy. So that area of it has to be, I think, developed a little bit if you want to attract those types of tourists. But as Fred mentions, marketing it as a tourist destination for Southeast Asians might be a little bit more successful. And then, of course, the KTX, being able to get there and back in the same day, is an added bonus that will enable people, you know, to go and enjoy PyeongChang and then come back and, as Fred mentioned, party in Seoul.
That's right. So going forward, how do you think PyeongChang can leverage some of its unique characteristics to become a tourist hotspot?
I mean, I think the game by themselves, I mean, will be such a good advertisement for the city, right? So I think after that, I hope like travel agencies, the Korean tourism organization, as we said before, will try to find, like to target some tourists in Southeast Asia that, or in China, that might be interested. And now, like everybody will talk about PyeongChang, so they will know there is this great city. As you say, it's a small city, but it's not a big issue because it's so easy to go now by train. Right. You can visit Gangneung. There is many things to visit. PyeongChang as well. I mean, I like to walk in the mountain in Korea in summer or in spring, and so even after the Winter Games, during the other period of the year, that's a attractive touristic destination. So I think there is many ways to advertise PyeongChang.
All right. Okay, now in terms of security, some are saying that there's some anxiety over the fact that, you know, it's less than 100 kilometers away from the demarcation line from North Korea. Did you sense any anxiety in the air?
Well, previously, you know, a few months ago, when the U.S. and North Korea were threatening each other with nuclear war, yeah, you know, although I didn't think that either party was really serious and there was a lot of bluff going on there, I think that, of course, now, with North Korea participating in the Games, that the security concerns surrounding the Olympics have completely evaporated, and nobody's really worried about something, you know, in terms of North Korea taking place at the Olympics. They might be a little bit more worried about the potential gastric health of the security people at the Games, as you had some South Korean police that got sick last week. But as far as security goes, I don't think there's anything to worry about.
All right. Now let's talk about some economics. Main stadium, it took, I think, a bit over $100 million to build, and it's been used for the opening ceremony, and it'll only be used 3 more times for the closing ceremony and the opening and closing for the Paralympics as well, before being demolished. So do you think this is unwise choice or inevitable?
I think it's inevitable, and that's actually France organized when France organized the Winter Olympics in 1992 in Albertville. They did the same thing because it costs more to keep that huge infrastructure open for many years than just destroy it after. So France did that, and you have to know in PyeongChang this stadium has 35,000 seats. PyeongChang itself has only 45,000 people living there. So why keep this huge building that will have no use after the game? So I think it's better to build it knowing that you will dismantle it after, so you reduce the cost. And I think they don't want to dismantle it completely. They want to keep a smaller stadium and maybe a small museum related to the games. So I think they did what was the most obvious economical choice.
Right. So they're selectively demolishing it. The main stadium they're taking down, but the smaller ones they're trying to repurpose it.
Exactly. Yeah, I visited the stadium where they held the opening ceremony, and it had sort of a lower level that was concrete that I think that they're going to leave to have events, and then the upper level that had, you know, a lot of seats was temporary, so it was much cheaper to construct and cheaper to take down, and will have some use. The lower section will have some use afterward.
Right, and I think if you construct the stadium with the end in mind, then as you mentioned, cost will be lower in terms of constructing it. Because if you have a look at the case of, say, you know, Athens or Rio, they did have the bold sort of aim to have it repurposed after the games, but that didn't really happen.
Yeah.
So perhaps it's more wise to actually being more realistic to actually decommission it after the games.
Right. Sochi, is also a small. It was a small town before the Olympics, just like Kannan, and they also demolished most of the objects after the Olympics. It makes no sense. Sochi has got about 80,000 people population.
Right.
Yeah, why would you need 50,000 seat stadium there? Right.
So a similar story there.
Yeah, same story. And I think it's happening in most of the countries that hold Olympic Games.
Right. Okay. Now, another focus of the PyeongChang Winter Olympic Games is technology. So cutting-edge technology will be incorporated in many facets of the game. So let's see what's on offer. One of the government's 5 major objectives for the Winter Olympics is the utilization of ICT technology. New technologies in the field of 5G networks, the Internet of Things, AI and augmented reality are being unveiled at the PyeongChang Winter Olympics. The UK's Guardian says connectivity will be further boosted at PyeongChang through the adoption of a 5G network. Hong Kong's South China Morning Post is expecting the PyeongChang Olympics to be a cutting-edge showcase for the very latest technology. Singapore's Straits Times is expecting the PyeongChang Games to be the most high-tech Winter Olympics ever and says South Korea will welcome visitors by showing off its latest technological innovations. Now, the foreign press often describe Korea as an IT powerhouse, a sophisticated IT powerhouse. Do you agree with this general sentiment?
Sure, I'd agree with that sentiment here. It has reportedly the fastest bandwidth in terms of the internet, and is the home of Samsung and other IT powerhouses. Of course, you've got the handphones that are the most, I think, popular in the world. So definitely, it's an IT powerhouse.
Right. Now, some of the new technologies that's being unveiled at the Olympics include 5G technology, 360 VR live stream footage. There are some drones that'll be catching other unauthorized drones. So which of these or other technologies do you think will be most essential in the smooth running of the Games?
Speaking of the technology, I think that maybe 5G is the most kind of famous thing. Everybody is talking about that. The organizers always mention 5G. But for me, as a journalist, I mean, it doesn't really make a difference between 5G or 4G, because 99% of the time when I spend for writing, and only maybe 1/10% of the time for sending my information.
Right.
So, that would make difference just milliseconds for me.
For me, I'm a TV guy, so I'm all about the 5G. When I read that it's something like 50 times faster in terms of transferring information, I'm like, wow, that's great. Because sometimes when I'm using my phone or computer, it doesn't stream. The video that I'm looking at doesn't stream.
It buffers in between.
It buffers a lot. And so if this 5G is going to eliminate that and enable me to view video better, I think it'll be great, because it's really annoying now. And also transferring my video to my head office or head offices, or that being able to do that quickly, because every time that I click on upload, I don't know how long that bar is going to be. Sometimes it'll say 5 minutes, sometimes it'll say 30 minutes.
Right.
And with 5G, it sounds like it'll be faster. My concern is that after that's been in place for a year, people will just be sending way more information, so it'll just go at the same speed that it is now.
But it'll be clogged.
Yeah, it'll just get clogged up again.
Right, so perhaps not as important for written information, but for video information, it'll be very useful.
Yeah.
Now, aside from 5G, are there any particular technology that you'd like to try firsthand?
I mean, the thing I really want to try, and it's allowed by 5G, you mentioned it, is this VR experience, when the athlete will have some camera on their helmet, and you can have some VR goggles, is that the word? And then you can really see what they see. That will be extremely impressive, and I want to try that.
Now, do you have any tips as foreigners who have lived in Korea for a long time? Do you have any tips for the foreign spectators that will be coming here on how to enjoy, how to get the most out of their time in both PyeongChang and the rest of Korea?
Try the food.
Yeah,
try the food.
Got to try the food for sure. And dress warmly.
Yeah, dress
of
warmly.
course.
Right, do you have any final comments?
I'm very happy the game started. It's been a very good experience so far, and I hope it will continue.
Okay. PyeongChang 2018 Winter Olympic Games is underway and smooth sailing, and it's our hope that the Winter Olympic Games will leave a lasting legacy for both PyeongChang and the rest of Korea. That's all the time we have left for today. Thank you for joining us, and goodbye.